Coming to you from lovely downtown Santa Rosa, it's the Backstage Sonoma Radio Show. And now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
For the past 20 years, Jesse Brewster, a versatile singer-songwriter and guitarist, has been enchanting audiences with his unique fusion of rock, Americana, and folk. Whether he's performing solo or with his hand-picked ensemble of top-tier West Coast musicians, Brewster never fails to captivate with his original, dynamic songs. More than just a musician, Brewster's life experiences have deeply influenced his music. The loss of his brother to the same disease he battles inspired him to write and record his songs. His first solo record was a heartfelt benefit for PKD. I caught up with Jesse to discuss his songwriting goals and an upcoming show with other talented musicians at the Lost Church in Santa Rosa. But first, let's hear a sample of Jesse's music. This is You're the Only Place.
Big skies, big life, far from those city lights. Hard work and hardly any play. For so long I've stayed strong, I know just where I belong. But most of my time is spent alone, and I thought that I had every little thing I'd ever need. But you broke down the walls of my heart like a sweet melody. So what do you say? Let's ride this road together, 'cause I don't think I'll make it on my own. And every day with you keeps getting better, 'cause you're the only place I wanna go.
Hey, Jesse, welcome to Backstage Sonoma.
How you doing, Steve?
Really good. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, man.
What inspired you to become a musician, and who were some of your influences along the way?
I grew up listening to music of the 60s and 70s that my parents were playing, and artists like Neil Young, Bob Marley, the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, and more. It was always playing in the house. No matter what was going on, there was always music, Willie Nelson. And so it was just always a big part of my everyday life. And I realize now that sometimes there's not a lot of music playing in people's household. And I'm always like, sometimes I'll go into a get together. Maybe there's 20 people, 30 people in a house, and there's just no music playing. And that just seems odd. Just so like, hey, can we get some music going? Well, it's like the elixir, right? So those were some of the artists that I was just always hearing every day. And then, of course, growing up in the 80s, listening to a lot of harder rock stuff and kind of the birth of hip hop, punk and soul, just a lot of different influences, and started playing guitar at a really young age for a short period, and then gave it up for a few years, and then got back into it not full time, but just much more inspired to do so at about the age of 12, and had a first band a few years later with a couple buddies, and never looked back. I've always been playing music and being in bands and touring and through the late 90s, early 2000s, and then struck out on my own in 2003, 2004.
Nice. Of those musical influences you mentioned, are there any specific elements or lessons from these artists that you incorporate into your music?
I think that artists who find a way, I think Neil Young is a good example of somebody who he doesn't have the greatest voice in the world, right? He's a little bit quirky, but there's just something about the way that he delivers the words that he's saying get to you, right? There's artists like that, and no matter what their style is, it could be anything from bluegrass to heavy metal. I think when music and words find a way past whatever preconceptions you have and touch you in a certain way, that's really powerful. That's why I'm such a fan of so many different genres, because I love great art. I love people who connect. And I think that's what we're all trying to do as musicians, I think, is connect with people.
Absolutely. You mentioned to me earlier that you've been releasing singles monthly this year, and your goal for the upcoming months is to reach 100 songs, which I applaud you for. And can you talk about this? And what's your motivation for doing this?
Beginning in 2004, I started releasing music, and my third or fourth album, which is called March of Tracks, came out in 2014. But the process behind that record was coming to the realization that people weren't listening to albums as much anymore. People were listening to songs. That wasn't a great thing, I don't think, overall. But I recognized that that's the way people were consuming music. And it also afforded me the opportunity to do things in a variety of studios with a variety of players. So March of Tracks was, the record started to be recorded in March of 2013. And it was just 14 tracks, which I released over the next 14 months and then consolidated all of those songs onto one record called March of Tracks. Fast forward to the current climate, which is definitely all about songs and just releasing on a regular basis. That's the way that it's working these days in terms of the attention economy, which again, I'm not a huge fan of, but and I'm definitely making records still. But this year and end of last year, actually, I started releasing different songs that I had. I always have a big backlog of songs that I'm trying to record, and just started releasing them on a monthly basis to keep that, to constantly be putting out new music. And I think it's also, regardless of the streaming platforms and anything else, I think it's just a great exercise in having a motivation to continue to finish things, right? Because I feel like a lot of artists, whether it be music or painting, have all these projects or songs that they've got that are half done, that were really great ideas to begin with. But then I think it's easy to come up with great ideas, I feel like, if you're an artist, or at least the beginning of a good idea, but it's really hard to finish. I think people who can finish and get stuff out there are the ones that you're hearing, right? They're able to complete what their idea is. So I just really been focusing on that, and whether I'm writing something new and I record that in a month, I dig something out from last year that I had gotten halfway through. It's just been a great exercise. And then the 100 songs idea just came about when I realized that in addition to other bands I've been in where I've written songs, just under my name alone, I've got somewhere in the 80s at this point, number of songs. So my goal over the next, certainly it'll probably take me into 2025, but I want to try to get to 100, just because I feel like it's a really good benchmark and a goal to have.
Good for you. Yeah. It's quite a goal. And I encourage you to finish that.
Yeah.
You sent over some of your music to share with our listeners. The first track I'm going to play is called Make or Break. What can you tell us about this song?
Make or Break came from the March of Tracks album. It was inspired by a couple of particular things. One is the driving from LA to Vegas, which I've done a couple times. And at night, actually both times, they're impulsive decisions. It's just an amazing sight, even though it's artificial and out of nowhere, is when you're driving through the desert and the pitch blackness, and over the horizon, just the lights of Vegas. And you get excited because if you're going to see a show, or you're going to play the slots or blackjack or whatever, it's just this opportunity, and the lights represent, here it comes. And then probably more importantly than that, it's just the idea of songwriters going to somewhere like Nashville with a dream and trying to give it all they've got and not give up what they're doing.
Let's listen to it now. This is Make or Break by Jesse Brewster, and you're listening to it on Backstage Sonoma.
I've been driving for days on end, taking longer than I planned. Gonna keep my foot to the floor till I see the lights of the promised land. I got an IV drip of coffee and the radio is set to blast. Might not be the first to finish this race, but I know I won't be coming at last. Eyes on that dotted yellow line, I'm gonna find my way back home. I've never been there before, but I know it's gonna call me its own. All night bright light, city sticking out, it's time we took our turn. 1,200 miles to get here, baby, gonna see how bright our style can burn. No regrets, can't forget the place I bet's on, the number one chance to take. Living a high life or in the gutter, it's gonna be make or break. I've been a accused of letting chances pass me by, but it ain't gonna be like before. Got a high batch of tracks and I won't be coming back without a knock on opportunity's door. I got $34 and my West Coast strut. I'm stepping forward with a new attitude, rolling 7s and 11s till the sun comes up, till my fingers turning black and blue. Eyes on that ever elusive prize, I hope I know it when it comes. Holding on tight to what I know and not forgetting where I'm from. All night bright light city sticking out, it's time we took our turn. 1,200 miles to get here, baby. We're gonna see how bright our star can burn. No regrets, can't forget the place I bet's on, the #1 chance to take. Living a high life or in the gutter, it's gonna be make or break.
If you're just joining us, my guest is singer-songwriter Jesse Brewster. This is a tough question for me to ask, but can you talk about your brother and how he inspired your music?
My brother Jim inspired my music in a big way because when I started to play, or get really in guitar again, we were 11 and 12 years old, he's actually my half brother, so he grew up in Southern California. And when he graduated high school, he moved to Berkeley and was living with us. And he heard me playing and just saw the potential and was just super fired up and telling me, I got to keep going. I got to do this. And I don't know that I would have continued, at least not with the same fervor, had he not inspired what I did. Him and my dad and me all share a common hereditary kidney disease called polycystic kidney disease. And actually, my first album was a benefit to that foundation that supports the research for a cure. And in 1998, my brother passed away from a brain aneurysm, which is a side effect of that disease, when he was 29. So when I was doing all the band stuff and working on a lot of records and seeing how the process worked, and that happened, I wrote a song about him called One Reason, and it just inspired me to make a whole album of songs. And I really had no idea what I was doing. I had sung before, of course, and sung in bands, mostly background stuff, but some leads, but never had even entertained the idea of being a solo artist, or never had that dream of, me in center stage with a microphone or anything. But I wanted to make that record and go through that process. And I think that was what pushed everything forward after that, was just going through making that record and loving it so much and then getting into writing more. That's the impetus of all that.
All right. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Let's listen to some more of your music. This next song is called Will You? What's the backstory with this one?
So the first song you played, You're the Only Place, Will You, another song called Hear Me Out, and then there's a forthcoming song coming out next month called Evergreen, are all part of a series of songs that I wrote for sync licensing for TV stuff. I have a partner who is in that world, and You're the Only Place he co-wrote, and then Will You and Hear Me Out I wrote. And those are songs that were actually written for a show on Fox called Farmer Wants a Wife.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a really great exercise in taking myself out of the equation. And I kind of love writing songs in that way, where I don't have to, you spend so much time as a songwriter looking inward or trying to use your perspective. And I think when you're writing for a particular purpose, that's not about you, it's pretty liberating, because then you can there's no rules. And so I'm just trying to envision these sync libraries are looking for songs that are in a particular way for their shows. And they will often send you a Spotify playlist of of a bunch of different songs, sometimes 90 songs. As I was going through these, listening to them, they were so all over the map. You think Farmer Wants a Wife, you think country music,
Right.
or definitely in that genre, but there was all kinds of stuff on there. So I just stepped back and wrote what I thought would work. And so Will You is a duet with a really talented singer from the East Bay named Takus Allen, and wasn't originally thinking it was going to be a duet, but as I was getting further along in the writing, it was clear to me that that's what it should be. And it's just about accepting someone, loving someone for who they are despite their flaws. There's a video out there somewhere of us recording that song. It was just a really great process.
Let's listen to it now. This is Jesse Brewster doing Will You, and you're hearing it on Backstage Sonoma.
Will you take me how I am? Wanna make my life with you, and I'll do the best I can to make all your days feel special somehow. I'll dedicate my life to you, and I'm starting right now. Seems like every night I'm thinking about you, and I just can't seem to get your face out of my head. This morning when I awoke, you were the first thing on my mind. Nowadays everywhere I look, all I see is your smile. Will you take me how I am? Not saying I can't change, and I'll do the best I can to make all your days feel special somehow. I'll dedicate my life to you, and I'm starting right now.
These butterflies are making me anxious, and I always lose my breath whenever you come around. It's like you see a part of my soul that's been hiding, and now you're singing through my defenses with a gentle sound.
Will you take me how I am?
Wanna make my life with you, and I'll do the best I can to make all your days feel special somehow. Dedicate my life to you, and I'm starting right now.
Hold me in your heart, promise to meet you there. I've been a fool before, and this day forth I swear that every road leads to you, 'cause where you are is my home. Lord knows I can't build this life on my own. Will you take me how I am?
I wanna spend forever with you, and I'll do the best I can.
Make all our days feel special somehow. I'll dedicate my life to you, and I'm starting right now.
Jesse Brewster, singer-songwriter, is my guest today on Backstage Sonoma. Jesse, with such a creative career and diverse projects, what's next for you? Are there any new directions or upcoming projects you're excited about?
I'm going to continue to try to write songs that for TV and film, of course. And then recently I've been getting more into or back into playing full band style. And of course that's not what's happening here coming up in Santa Rosa, but I had taken a little bit of a break playing full band shows just because it was honestly just expensive, because everybody I work with is a professional and I want to pay people what they're worth. And it's just, as anybody knows, playing original music, especially in a full band format, is really challenging for a lot of logistical and financial reasons. So I've been more focused in the last however many years. Just when I play out, I play solo or play as a duo. Recently played Novato Art and Wine Festival with a full band, which was super fun, and the Ivy Room in Albany and other venues, and just trying to get back into writing songs with a full band in mind as well.
With your experience, do you have any advice you'd pass along to aspiring songwriters and musicians trying to find their voice and manage multiple creative pursuits?
If anybody is curious, there's a post that I just shared on Facebook, which I don't spend a lot of time on, but a friend of mine shared it. It's this woman talking about the soul-crushing challenge of being a songwriter or being any artist where capitalism and creativity intersect, right? Obviously, you want to be authentic as an artist, no matter what you're doing, and try not to be concerned with what's already out there, what you're trying to compare to, because I think that's becomes pretty transparent after a while, if that's what your intention is. So being true to yourself, being authentic, and just focusing on that is really the best way to move forward, because I think the success and whatever you're trying to achieve will follow.
Good advice, yeah. Hey, I'm really excited about your upcoming show at the Lost Church in Santa Rosa. You're sharing the stage with a couple other musicians. What can fans look forward to at the event?
It's a writer's round, which all three of us will be sharing songs and singing and playing on each other's materials. I've got first up and local Allison Page, who's a partner in musical crime for me. We've toured extensively together and co-written some songs, and I co-wrote and produced her EP that came out a few years back. So she'll be there, and also a really killer songwriter from a band called San Geronimo, and also his own solo stuff from West Marin, Darren Nelson. Be the three of us, and going to play a couple sets and tell jokes and play songs, and it'll be a fun little time.
And let me remind our listeners, Jesse Brewster, Darren Nelson, and Allison Page will perform at the Lost Church in Santa Rosa on Friday, August 16th. You can join them for an intimate evening of songs, stories, and laughs, as Jesse just mentioned. Doors open at 7:30 and showtime is 8:15 p.m. For tickets and more info, visit thelostchurch.com. Be sure to get that "the" in there, and it'll take you somewhere else. Believe me, thelostchurch.com. That's important. Also, be sure to head to Jesse's website, jessebrewster.com, to find more of his music and schedules. And I guess there's links to your social media as well.
Yep.
Cool. Hey, Jesse, thanks so much for stopping by the show today. I really appreciated the conversation.
Hey, man. Glad to be here. Thanks, Stephen.
Backstage Sonoma will be right back after this quick break.
Hey musicians, would you like to be a guest and promote your upcoming concert and latest release? It's easy. Just email the host at backstagesonoma@gmail.com.
Can't catch the show live? No worries. All Backstage Sonoma interviews and playlists are readily available on backstagesonoma.com. We appreciate your continued support and listenership. Thanks for listening to the Backstage Sonoma radio show on Cows FM. Join us next time for more great interviews and music from local and touring musicians.